welcome back to ET with GOTB. Sound the alarm. We finally have somebody else at the bottom of the table, which is not something to celebrate, but it is something to talk about. Let's get into it. I'm Rachel.
I'm Sophie.
And this is Extra Time with Girls on the Ball. So we had some big fixtures this weekend, plenty of goals and a little bit of movement down the bottom of the table, plus that giant gap that Manchester City had created at the top of the table has been shaved down ever so slightly.
I mean, it's still a pretty giant gap, but it's less of a giant gap than it was.
We will talk about all of that today and how it's impacted the table, and you're going to give us Player of the Week?
Yep.
Moment of the Week?
Yep.
Fantastic. We'll also have a look at the results in WSL 2, and we will answer a few of your questions as well. Thank you to everyone who sent some in. Can't get through them all. But before we get into that, this is your weekly reminder to make sure you're subscribed wherever you're watching, wherever you're listening to this podcast. Leave us a comment, leave us a review. We'd love to hear from you. And do follow us across all of our socials as well. We're at Girls on the Ball on everything. And Substack. I always have to get Substack in there. We are doing a good bit coming up in the next few weeks. We've got Champions League, we've got FA Cup, we've got international break. So we'll be here, there and everywhere covering that. And if you're following us, you won't miss a minute of the action. Okay, WSL results are as follows. Leicester City 0, Manchester United 2, Ziggiotti and Turland with the goals. Arsenal 1, Manchester City 0, Olivia Smith with the goal there. Liverpool 4, Aston Villa 1, Enderby, Thomas, Fisk, Gillag and Taylor with the goals. London City 0, Everton 1, Gabara with the only goal there. West Ham 3, Brighton 2, Morgan, Martinez, Asay, Seika and Venegas getting the goals. And Spurs 0, Chelsea 2, Walsh and Thompson on the score sheet. So the table looks like this. Manchester City remain on 39 points, but they also remain at the top. They're 8 points clear of Manchester United, who are in second on 31 points. Chelsea are in third on 30 and Arsenal in fourth on 29, but they have that game in hand. As I mentioned, there has been some change at the bottom of the table. Leicester have now dropped to the foot of the table. They're on 9 points. Liverpool are in 11th with 10 points and West Ham are in 10th on 11 points. So still plenty to play for down there. Leicester obviously have that game in hand, and Everton's win has pulled them out of there a little bit. They're in 9th on 14 points. Right. Leicester, should we start there? That's where we were on Saturday.
We were.
Against Manchester United at the King Power Stadium. I think you enjoy this one a little bit more than me. I think perhaps that was due to our positioning on the pitch. I was, of course, pitch side. It was a little bit flatter, and I stayed at one end for the whole thing. So Leicester didn't do a huge amount coming forward in the first half for me, and then Manchester United didn't do, despite the goals, a huge amount in the second half for me. So one of those days, and also my bad back. It's like an old person sitting on me stool, so I was.
That's what I've had to put up with the last week.
2 days.
Week.
Anyway, Manchester United came away with 3 points. Mark Skinner said afterwards it wasn't vintage, but we got a clean sheet and 3 points. I think that's probably a fair assessment.
Yeah, it certainly wasn't vintage from United. I think Leicester set up really well in the first half, and you take a look at the stats and it shows like a dominance from Manchester United, and in a way it was, but they didn't really create all that much in terms of really big chances when you were looking at it. Leicester set out to defend the box in numbers, and crowd out the areas, and it meant that United had to start launching some balls in, delivering the crosses, which they are good at. But I think within the first 25 minutes they'd put in 14 crosses or something like that, because there's just no space to play through into the box. And Leicester are really good at working for each other, defending as a pack, and work really, really hard. They, at points, had 6 at the back, which kind of told the story. But then when Julia Ziggiotti scored, and it was kind of not a fluke goal, but it wasn't a shot.
It was a cross.
Goal. It was a cross. She floated in a cross. Leah Schuller went up to head it, missed it. It bounced, and it just deceived Olivia Clark in the goal. So maybe a touch of fortune in the way that went in. And then obviously, once it got into the second half, Leicester realised that they had to chase the game. They pushed their wing-backs up. They started going for it. They had a few really good opportunities on the break. Hannah Kane was putting in some lovely balls. Rachel Williams had a couple of chances as well. Naomi Mouchon, when she came on, had a really good chance pretty much with her first touch of the game, and they were taking it to United, and it wasn't particularly comfortable. But then that goal on the 88th minute kind of just sealed the deal for them. Leicester will be a bit...
They'll be a bit aggrieved because they should have had a penalty at 1-0.
And they thought there was a foul, which I think I agree with in the build-up to the second goal.
Yeah.
And I think when you're building momentum and then that kind of happens, suddenly the wind is taken out of your sails, and kind of any hope that they had of getting back into the game kind of evaporated. But it was a good take from Elizabeth Heron, really nifty feet. So
yes, it was. It was a good goal in the end and a cool celebration, which she mirrored Celine Bizet, who had done the same celebration when she scored at Leicester last season, where she kicked the corner flag. So she did the same thing, which was pretty cool. So at least I got something.
But yeah, not overly awe-inspiring from United, but they're getting the job done. And as we so often say in league football, that's what it's about. It's about results over performance sometimes.
Yes, and when you've got big games coming up on the horizon, you'll want to be playing well, but at the same time, you'd rather be getting those kind of performances out of the way.
Yeah, this is a busy week. They're going to Spain in the Champions League for that big playoff, and that's really, really important. So they've got a busy fortnight ahead, and I guess they're reserving some energy for that as well.
Absolutely. Okay, you were at this game, Arsenal-Manchester City, probably the game of the weekend. Speaking of big weeks, Arsenal have a big month, I think, at the moment. And they came out of this one on top. It delivered in terms of quite an enjoyable tactical battle on the pitch, right? High quality match. A bit like the Chelsea-Arsenal game. It was a really enjoyable game for the neutral to watch.
Yeah, it was fun. It was it was basically the two best attacking teams in the country, and attacking presses going head to head. And yes, Manchester City have made much more use of their attacking advantage this season in terms of the goals that they scored, and Arsenal have struggled at points in that area. But it doesn't mean that they haven't built up and created opportunities. And I think Renee came out and she got her tactics spot on.
Well, first of all, the big surprise was Olivia Smith in the night.
Yeah, Stina Blackstenius had a calf injury, which ruled her out. So she opted, instead of bringing Freedom on into the 10 and Alessia Russo up front, she opted to put Olivia Smith as the kind of central forward. And she was working quite closely with Alessia Russo, but it meant that they had a runner in between the lines. And I think if you're looking at some of maybe the few frailties that this Manchester City side have, it can be that they can be caught on the hop on the counter-attack or with speed at their defence. London City showed it a couple of weeks ago. Arsenal demonstrated again this time round. And I think, that was the whole plan. And it's a big role for a young player to do when she's not been playing that role for Arsenal in a big game as well. But she just seems to love playing on the Emirates stage.
But also what I found interesting is that it's a risk to take from Renee, and she was similar in terms of how she approached the Chelsea game. She took a risk by playing both Russo and Blackstenius because it left her short off the bench if things weren't going right and they needed someone to come on and a goal scorer to come on. She took another risk, which I think is really interesting to see a manager do in big games, to take those risks, and it paid off both times.
Being able to adapt as well is really important because, things don't always go right. You have injuries, you have problems in your squad or whatever it might be, or games don't go to plan, and you have to be able to have the solutions. And we've always talked about it. You can't just be a plan A coach. You have to be have a couple of other plans to get through situations and whatever might come your way during a game. And I think certainly this time round, in terms of injury and stuff, she's taking risks. She's being brave about it. She isn't just sticking with the same old at times. I think in this game was the kind of
and I think
she
has been accused earlier on this season of, not her, but Arsenal have been accused of being predictable. And yes, I know this was kind of off the back of an injury and maybe forced hand a little bit, but I think many wouldn't have predicted Olivia Smith going up.
You would have expected more, as I said, more to be on the pitch.
Yeah.
I think other things that Arsenal did really well, they did really well in midfield. I think Kim Little on Viv just completely nullified her. Talk about Kim Little in a minute. And then
Hasegawa as well.
Russo on Yui Hasegawa. And we all know how Manchester City like to hunt in packs. They have really good energy in that high press, but so do Arsenal. It was kind of those two high energy presses coming together, and City really, really struggled in that first half in particular. They struggled to get any kind of leverage in that midfield area. I think Katie McCabe was inverting slightly to occupy Caroline. It meant that she didn't have the attacking presence that she maybe had against Chelsea, for example, last week. So yeah, some really interesting little battles going on. Lotte Mubamoy, immense, sticking like glue to Bunny Shaw, didn't give her an inch.
That was what I was going to say. It felt like watching it back for me that there was just always a player on a Man City player when they got the ball. Like Miedema had very little time and very little space to work in. It was really interesting to see those two midfields go up against each other. And the same, Lotte Mubamoy, like they swarmed players when they got in the box, really reduced their creativity. And Manchester City had one shot on target. I think that came in the 37th minute, which seems crazy when you think about this City
what
team.
they've done this season.
Yeah, so that was really interesting. We do have to touch on the fact that Arsenal absolutely got away with one. That Caldente tackle on Hemp. Arguably, if there was VAR, she probably would have got sent off.
Yeah, she would have.
And that would have been a free kick. Now, I think some of the pundits were saying, "Oh, it would have been a red card and a goal." No, it wouldn't. It would have been a red card and a free kick.
I know you can't tell what would have happened afterwards, but they would have had a player down. Yeah, it's a different situation, right? And yes, it was absolutely denying goal scoring opportunity. She should have been sent off. She should have served a 1-game ban as well.
Absolutely.
But the referee didn't spot it, and with no VAR on the game. We can't go back and do it, unfortunately. But Manchester City have a right to be aggrieved about that. But I think actually when I interviewed Andre Jeglerts post-match, he was really level-headed about everything. I asked him about that incident, and he was like, "Well, I haven't seen it," which is the go-to manager line. But he was very surprised about it. But he didn't seem like
that was the reason.
Yeah. He was very honest. He was like, we were off it today. It's about small margins in these games. Arsenal played a really good game. Congratulations to them. We win some, we lose some, and we move on to the next one. And it's not like
I really
too
liked
high
it.
or too low about it. It's obviously not the end of the world. They are
8 points clear.
Ahead in the league. They're comfortable. They are pretty much there. And so there's no need to panic. There's no need to get too stressed when things don't go their way. 13 games unbeaten is a ridiculous run to have been on.
It's the first time they haven't scored.
Yeah, but it was always going to end at some point.
But all of that stuff is kind of crazy. They've been doing that well. And as you touched on, I actually really liked Jeglerts' post-match interviews. I like him as a coach. He's really measured. Some managers may have jumped on that and blamed that as the reason. But he wasn't like that, and I like that. I think he brings that kind of calmness to the team.
I felt very sorry for him because I was doing, obviously, the post-match for the World Feed. And then I had to do a Swedish TV interview again.
You had to do it?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. So I was doing Swedish TV
You need to work
interviews.
on your Swedish.
It's quite funny. I have no Swedish. But I had to finish my interview in English and then go, I'm really sorry, but I'm going to have to ask this question again so you can answer in Swedish.
Oh, no.
But he was very accommodating, so...
Well, anyway, do you want to wax lyrical about Kim Little now, or is that something that might potentially get picked up later?
I think it might come later.
Okay, because I don't actually know who these players or moments are. So, okay, fair enough. We will move on to maybe the biggest result of the weekend, which is Liverpool 4, Aston Villa 1. Absolutely finding their feet, absolutely finding their shooting boots. Was it a case for Liverpool of just getting to the January transfer window, do you think?
Yes, I think they'd actually shown... improvements in performance a little bit beyond that.
They just needed a sprinkle of...
But they needed depth. And, when you talk to Gareth Taylor, he's said in articles and stuff about how hard this season has been. And I think it's easy to forget about everything that's happened off the pitch this season when we're talking about Liverpool, both in terms of what happened at the start of the season and how awful that the two... instances of really sad incidents that happened, that squad have had to deal with so much, and then add to that injury woes and being, not really supported financially from the club as a whole. It has its impact, but I think you're now starting to see what they're about in this game. They hit early. Mia Enderby is turning into a goal scoring machine, having not scored for a little while in the league. She's on a bit of a run of form at the moment. Kerry Holland is unbelievable. Yeah. She's back in wicked form at the moment. She ran the show, I think. And they got that 2 early goals, and that really gives you a foundation to really protect. Aston Villa had their opportunities. They had more possession. They had a few chances, but they never really hurt them as much, other than the goal from Marie Taylor, which was a really, really good goal.
Yeah, I do. I think as well, though, going in at 2-1, the game could have changed in the second half, and it just didn't. And we're going to talk a little bit about Aston Villa now with a question that we got through. Just give me one sec. But I just want to finish up on Liverpool very quickly because, I do wonder now if they go on a bit of a run. They have Chelsea next, okay? So that may not be a match that they're necessarily looking at picking up.
They do love playing Chelsea.
They do. They have the history. But then after the international break, they've got Leicester, Brighton and Everton. And actually that's really interesting given who's with them down around the bottom of the table. They could be some really interesting results. But I do think the January transfer has been massive for them. Sophie Whittaker on Instagram asked, what is going on at Villa? I've been a Villa fan since 22-23 season and it just seems like the same issues keep repeating. The team has some good moments, but then they're incredibly inconsistent. This season they started super strong defensively and yet it's all fallen apart. They're conceding 3+ goals a game. Body language on the pitch seems pretty negative right now and there seems to be very poor communication. Recruitment also seems to be a bit all over the shop, with players being talked about coming in and then never materialising. I think not only have Villa been inconsistent across the season, they can be inconsistent within a 90-minute game and they can have really good halves and then just fall apart like a wet cake in a second half. And I don't understand, Natalia Arroyo sounds like the kind of coach when she speaks where she wants her players to be brave, and if you make a mistake, you make a mistake, but you learn from it. But I don't know whether it's a case of them being too brave, not brave enough. What's not clicking?
I think they have a very distinct style of play that she wants. She wants to be very direct. She doesn't like faffing around in the midfield area too much. She likes to basically pass through the lines and hit back to front as quickly as possible. I think that can leave you exposed at the back when you're playing that kind of football. I would also say that there are injury problems at Aston Villa at the moment, which are quite significant. The fact that they're missing Missy Kearns and Lucia Kendall in that midfield area, who have been 2 key players for them. I think the absence of Rachel Daly has also been key as well, because she not only provides goals up front, and the injury came at a really awkward time for her because she just started finding the back of the net. But she also provides so much cover defensively, and she works so hard out of possession. She's a bit like maybe a Bethany England in that respect, where she'll be chasing down everything and try and be everywhere for her team. And I think you're missing kind of that defensive out of possession maturity that she brings. But yeah, it's not looking good at the moment for them, I don't think. They need a game where they can just hold on. They keep conceding in short spells of time. So the 2 goals in the first 15 minutes, 2 goals in the final 15 minutes. That's a mentality thing, I think. It's a maturity thing. In terms of Natalia, I think she
only just celebrated a year in.
She's a year in. I don't think, they did nothing in the transfer window in January. I mean, they brought in Orion Jean-Francois, which was a good get from Chelsea. She needs time, I guess, to settle in her new surroundings. It's a very different system.
Did they blow all the budget?
Chelsea play. But I don't think they've been trying to regenerate the squad from maybe the Carla Ward era, and we're still in that at that moment in time. And I'm not sure Natalia quite has all of the players that she wants yet, in terms of being able to play the football that she wants to play. And I think there's also I really admire her because she's giving youth a chance. And I think they learn so much from these situations. But the fact that Rachel Maltby is playing almost every game at 18 years old, Georgia Mullet's leading the line ever since Rachel Daly's got injured. These players are very, very young and they can do wonderful things, and they are going to grow into they have the potential to be brilliant players, but they're very much at that beginning part of that learning curve. And this will do them wonders, this whole experience of being down in games, losing.
They need to be allowed to make mistakes.
But yeah, and I know that's frustrating as a fan, but I think when you're thinking about the long term and trying to keep hold of these players, you're looking at, the next 18 months, this experience for them is going to develop them into WSL players, and they are going to be so much better for it. And if they can hold on to them, you've got a core of young players who will be part of the club if you can keep them for the next 5-6 years.
Absolutely. All right, we're going to move on to the next game. London City 0, Everton 1. Probably a bit of a surprise result. I think London City have probably lost a few games that weren't maybe expected to lose, which is difficult because I thought they played well against Manchester City, for example, and it didn't seem to be working for them against Everton. They were unlucky in terms of what they were creating, and that Courtney Brosnan was like having none of it.
She's just like, no.
Yeah, you know, I think they were a lot of the possession, a lot of the opportunities. Everton did improve in the second half. You know, obviously this is a tricky week for Everton. Brian Sorensen has been sacked. Unfortunately, I understand that fans wanted a change. But I do feel sacking a manager is always the easiest way to do things without addressing maybe fundamental issues around, you know, support and what's needed within the club. So it's an easy out.
I think as well, like I said this the other day on our live, Brian Sorensen over the last 4 years has had to build something from scratch. I think we actually said this in our media group. Someone said, you know, he's for the last 2 years been building this house from scratch. And I was like, well, and bits of the roof keep falling. Because he's had so many issues with that squad. And I would say that while the playing squad has got stronger, the support staff have been a bit under-resourced and maybe need a few extra heads. And I think everyone's doing maybe a bit too much at times because they have to, because they're working within their means. And that probably doesn't help in terms of like being able to focus on one thing. I remember at Reading, and I'm not saying it's exactly the same situation, of course, but at Reading, Kelly Chambers, I remember interviewing her after a game. She was like, I was being physio at half time. You know, I was having to massage the player's leg because they were sore.
Tape them up.
And then I'm trying to like give
talk
tactics and give a motivational talk. And then I come out and I'm a manager again. So it's in some of these clubs where building the infrastructure around the team takes a bit longer than necessarily building the team itself. And that's, I think, Everton still have some way to go to doing that. In terms of the timing, I thought it was a bit weird as well. For that to happen, like, after they'd won the game, their first game at home, it just seemed a bit weird timing in the middle of this block. Why not, if you're going to do it, either do it after the loss to Brighton or do it, like, international break. And to bring in the under-18s manager, I'm sure he's got a good understanding of the club. He seemed very pleasant on the sideline the other day, but just from first glance. But I mean, if you're going to do it, why don't you have someone lined up to do the permanent job? I think, and it was just a bit confusing. I think because I think they were starting to show real signs of improvement.
Yeah, I think that's probably what frustrates Everton fans is that sometimes they can play some really nice football for a half, or they can challenge, you know. No offence, but I'm not going to say they challenged Chelsea, but they made life difficult for Chelsea. I think they challenged City when they played them. There was a game where they had a couple of really good opportunities and made things difficult and couldn't capitalise. And I think the frustration is not having that kind of consistent performance against teams in and around you. And some of that is down to the fact that, like, I can't remember how many games in it was until you could play the same team, same 11 back-to-back, for example.
It was the Chelsea game, wasn't it?
Yeah, so not an excuse, but just a reminder of the various things that all need to go right for you to win games consistently. And I think a lot of these teams, it's time, it's bedding in players, it's being allowed to fail at times, but learn from it and improve. And I just think we don't see teams getting a lot of time.
But I think they have a very good core group of players, experience. When you look at the likes of Courtney, Ruby Mesa is young, but she's got a really mature head on her shoulders.
Yeah.
You've got, Yaya. I know she's not playing regularly at the moment because she's still coming back from her ACL. She is really experienced, so they will know how to pull this group together, I think, and start really. I think when Courtney speaks, at least, you get real sense of the cohesion within the playing group. So I think that will stand them well. In this game, they were under the cosh for a lot of the game. They had to rely on Courtney a lot. Ruby Mace again was really good as well. But I think we've seen so often this season they take their chances, Everton, sometimes. They can be clinical when it matters. They took their chance on this occasion. And it was a lovely press from Miki to win the ball back off, I think it was Maria Perez, and then slide a nice ball through to Guevara. And I think they're the positive signs that they can build on for the next few months of the season.
For London City, it hasn't quite clicked yet. I think they are creating, and I think their front line look exciting. The good thing is they're still in sixth. So
I think it's the consistency for them. Like last week, they played badly but beat Brighton. This week they played better and created a lot more but lost.
Yeah.
So it's like they're finding that like new team. It's going to happen whenever you come up as well. Getting used to your new environment, your new league and new challenges.
Your new manager.
They're just a bit like up and down.
That's just come in.
And it will steady eventually. They've got the players to do it.
If they're given time to steady it, that is. Okay, West Ham 3, Brighton 2. I was at this one. Wasn't the most exciting first half. Absolutely popped off in the second half with the Hammers scoring 3 goals in 10 minutes to take all 3 points, which is quite frustrating when you're floor manager / reporter and you're writing your questions on the 80th
This was
minute.
my biggest stress at Arsenal City. Like being, obviously I'm neutral, but in the 6 minutes of added time, I was like, for the love of God, Man City, I know like you want to score, but please don't, because I'm going to have to rewrite all of my questions.
Well, so I had my
don't
questions, my questions written in the 80. I was writing them in the 80 odd minute. Then they scored in the 81st. I think fine. They were still losing. My question could still be, you know, frustrating not to get something out of a game that you played so well in to Rita. Then they got the second goal, and I thought, okay, frustrating to only come away with a point. Arguably, you probably would have, you know, felt you deserved more. Now, then she scored the 3 goals. So there was no frustration involved at all. I had to rewrite everything. But I thought West Ham started surprisingly well, particularly against Brighton, who played so well against London City but didn't win. Like, started so well, a lot of intensity. It was kind of the other way around. West Ham were super aggressive, really intense in their press, running down every ball, giving Brighton very little time on the ball because Brighton like to play out from the back. And they just forced them into like sending balls out wide and out and stuff like that and not finding each other. Then they were a little bit sloppy in possession when they did get it. And I think they kind of made it really difficult for Brighton to put their own game plan into effect, which I'd say was quite frustrating for them. However, then the Kiko Seika goal came out of kind of nowhere. And I want to check, did Nadozi get an assist on that? Because I swear it came direct from Nadozi and Kiko Seika just took it on the volley. No, they didn't give it. Maybe it hit someone before it hit Kiko Seika. But
it to Minami.
It literally came like 1-2 bang goal.
Route 1 football.
Came out of nowhere against the run of play, arguably. I think West Ham had a flurry of corners at that stage, and that's then where it came from. And again, even the second goal felt a bit like it came out of nowhere. Then Fionn Morgan scored an absolute worldie, again, out of nowhere, because I think Brighton had maybe gotten a little bit back into it then. So some of the goals, as a reporter, you were just like, not expecting, because it just felt completely against the run of play. The last 2 goals, however, you felt were coming. Vivian Asseyi, I thought, was brilliant, really exemplified the determination and fight from West Ham right until the end, which perhaps is something they've lacked a little bit before. And it kind of contrasted a little bit with Shakira Martinez, who'd kind of, the ball was kind of lost and sent maybe too far forward, and she kind of dropped her shoulders on the 30-40 yards and just kind of started to jog across the pitch. And Asseyi absolutely chased down that ball, and she just kind of really encapsulated that desire to get the points. So it was no real surprise then that it was her who got the final goal, because once they got the second goal, the crowd really pushed them.
Yeah.
They thought, okay, we've got them on the back foot
on
here.
the momentum and stuff like that.
So yeah, they'll be delighted with the performance, which is good. Like, for West Ham, it's not just a case of squeezing it in. You know, they deserved the win. They deserved it after the performance. You know, a player like Asseyi, who's just had 100 caps for West Ham last week and had a presentation beforehand, and she got player of the match. So all in all, I think a good performance from them. Brighton will be frustrated to have
he was so annoyed at the end.
Yeah, I know. I did
Chris
too.
Roberts.
But to kind of convey the 2 performances from last week, because again, my questions to Chris were going to be, last week you played really well, didn't get the points. This week, not great, got the points. Then I had to change it, obviously. But yeah, they just were a bit flat and unable to really get a proper grasp on the game a little bit. He seemed to think that he felt that they were the only team that looked like scoring, which I disagreed with.
Haven't watched it today.
No. So they'll want to get, right back into it. I believe they're facing Arsenal.
Yeah, I think it's interesting with Brighton. I think they've won 1 in 5 league games. So, and I know there's a lot going on behind the scenes at the club, and you have to take that into account, and that's for sure. And it's not been an easy time, but there is this, it happened last year as well. They went on that slump around Christmas time, fell off, and they'll find themselves again come March, but it's probably a bit too late to really impact anything. So they need to learn how to not do that, I think. I think the way that they fell apart will be disappointing. The 3 goals, they just kind of completely were unable to contain West Ham's momentum. I think Chimaka Nnadozie is a superb keeper, but she lives life very much on the edge.
She'll pull off an unbelievable save from an Assaye free kick, and then she'll be halfway up the pitch, and you're like, what are you doing here?
She has this tendency of rushing out of her goal to try and clear the ball. And 9 times out of 10, it somehow works. I sometimes feel it with the Yamashita as well at City. They live a bit, and goalkeepers are strange anyway. You're one of them.
All right.
In ice hockey. You're in ice hockey.
Ice hockey.
Cross hockey, sorry. In hockey. So you have to have a particular character, I think, about you to be a goalkeeper. But and so I think it was inevitable at some point that one of those things would go wrong.
It was West Ham's second goal. She rushed out, completely missed it,
I think.
And then do you know what she did about 2 minutes later? The same bloody thing.
Yeah.
Except it worked.
Yeah.
But I would have been like, I'm staying on my goal if that
It's like
happened to
riding
me.
a horse or falling off a horse. You just have to get back on and try it again. But yeah, so 9 times out of 10 it works, and there's that one disaster, absolute disaster, and that's what happened. I think.
Yeah. And it's a shame because she had some really great saves.
And
as
she
well,
made
so.
an actually brilliant save in the first ball on Assaye's goal.
Yes.
And you really feel for keepers in that circumstance because they can't do anything. They've done everything they can. She made a sublime save, and then it just kind of falls to the opposition. And what can you do? It's just frustrating.
Anyway, we're going to move on to the final game of the weekend, which was Spurs-Chelsea at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, which we got to for the second half. I listened to the first half in the car on the way, and then got the second half. Spurs, I think, will be frustrated that they didn't get more out of that first half. I thought at times they had Chelsea on the ropes. Really should have capitalised. That they had this unbelievable passage of play, and I saw it a few times when they played Leicester early on this year, where that kind of, I really enjoy how the midfield and front three work together. There's a bit of fluidity at times where it's like they've been playing with each other for years, these kind of short triangle passes, and they go together as a 6 sometimes, or a 5. Once they realise they're getting a bit of a counter-attack, they all come forward and support. And I think Holt was so unlucky from a lovely run to hit the crossbar. They had another moment where Gabset stole the ball off Cuthbert, and again they kind of went together as a group, and we're really unlucky not to get a goal out of that. So that will be frustrating for them because Chelsea had chances of their own, but I do think it could have been a different story had they put some of those away.
You have to take your chances at this level, otherwise a team like Chelsea will come back at you, and I think...
They fell away a little bit in the second half. They were 1-0 down.
They had a couple of... Yeah, and Thompson got her goal. Again, another sorry feeling for Lisa Kopp as well, because she made a terrific save off Nuskin to prevent the goal hitting the back of the net, and then no one was there on her team to kind of follow up. So Alyssa Thompson does what Alyssa Thompson does and scored. I think maybe I bought Tottenham a bag of luck when I came in the second half, but I think they dropped off a bit. They kind of had their heads down a bit at the start of that second half. I guess that's the timing, Kira Walsh scored in the 39th minute. So I think that's probably part of it, you know, just before half-time. They had big chances at the end, though. Tinker Tamberg had one that she should have scored. She was so annoyed with herself because she's a Tottenham fan, and imagine scoring at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium as a Tottenham fan. She was so frustrated because it was literally from like 7 yards out or something. She was unmarked. And then I think it was Olivia Holt who had another opportunity. She broke through the Chelsea back line and, had a shot that she couldn't put across the face of goal. She went near side, and I think it was too close to the keeper.
Yeah. So they have had chances. I think Martin Ho will be pleased with their performance in terms of what they created against Chelsea. To be fair, once Chelsea got the 2 goals, they just looked a bit more confident about themselves. They were running around with their chests out and their shoulders back a little bit more than what we're used to seeing in the last couple of games for them. They were probably a bit like, okay, I think we've got this one now. We can actually enjoy it a bit more. So it was good to see that from Chelsea. I will say a number of changes. Nuskin started, a player who many have asked why she doesn't get more minutes. Not only did she start, she got player of the match as well out of it. She had a good game, but they're a team who I think have changed their starting 11 more than any other team this season, which I think is really interesting and is probably one of the reasons why
finding
they're not playing
cohesion
as well.
a little problematic. I think also people will talk about performance, and it wasn't a good performance, but when the shit hits the fan, as it has done in the last 2 weeks for them, I think you just have to find it's like a striker being out of form in front of goal. Sometimes you just need that tap-in or the ugly goal to get yourself up and running again and try and find that form, because they got really big 3 months ahead still.
Yeah, and while the week was difficult after losing to Arsenal, the Man City loss and the nature in which they lost it, the heat was really, really borderline over the top on.
Talk about Sonia's new contract.
Yes, Sonia Bon Pastor, it was announced by Chelsea that she had signed a new deal to take her until 2030, which in my head is like 15 years, so that's fucking ages, but actually it's only 4. That is quite scary. But that is, you know, some people think it was a reaction from Chelsea, but something like that doesn't happen within a couple of days.
It's
so
like a 24-hour.
Yeah, but I imagine the announcement of it may have been sped up. I don't know. Maybe it was a show of support for her, which I think is important.
I don't know about the announcement. I wonder putting it out at 7:00 on a Friday night was more to like just not
catch us off guard.
Not kind of sweep it under the carpet. I don't mean it that way. I'm sure they're very proud that she signed a new contract, but maybe to make a little bit less a deal about everything, get that sorted before the weekend happens.
Right.
Done and dusted. Kind of no big hoo-ha.
Song and dance. All right, can you please give me your player of the week?
Kimi Little. She is just ridiculous. 399 appearances for Arsenal.
Jesus, she must have started like 100 years ago.
If she plays against Leuven, and I hope she does because we'll be there, it'll be her 400th. So that's huge. 35 years young.
Do you know what? We often talk about how young some players are and how it makes us feel so old. Like, I'm only 2 years older than Kim Little, so that actually is quite nice.
We could do what Kim Little was saying. No, I mean, she is like a...
Benjamin Button.
That's what I said yesterday. Benjamin Button of women's football. She just looks like she's getting younger. I remember it was in the game, the Champions Cup final, and she was she was one of the last players back, and she was tracking back, and she was like at full pelt, and I was like, this is her at 35. Like, she looks like she's 23 or something. There was a challenge in this game.
I was going to say the Chelsea game when she went back with was it Thompson and LJ. There was 2 different times where she just appeared out of nowhere and blocked them on the line. Yes, then there was the one on
was it on Viv where she got
she
back
did a
and got
Miedema
around
because
it.
Miedema did that against someone, I can't remember who it was, United maybe, and then she went and did the exact same thing on her.
So she is sublime. I hope she can play forever. Actually, going on the way that she is, she might be able to play for at least a few more years. You hope, Marta's still going, so you never know.
Do it for Megan. She was 41, wasn't she?
Something like that. Or Gabby Zanotti the other day. But no, she ran the midfield as she does so much. She is a quiet leader, but she gives so much like aura with her quietness, I think, and her technical ability, and just the way that she can control the ball, drive play forward, defend as well, and provide that cover. She's an all-rounder, and I hope we get to hold on to her for a little while longer.
Yeah, women's football deserves to keep Kim Little for as long as possible. All right, give me your standout moment, please.
So I was going over this. One of them was the karate kick on the flag, just because you got the photo of it.
Oh, thanks.
And I thought that was cool. But I was actually wanting, and this is a little odd maybe, or a little out of the box, but I was going to go for Inma Gabara's finish. Because I just think her story needs highlighting. She is a young player, signed for Everton from Sevilla in July 2024. So she's 23 now. I think that made her 20 when that happened, or 21. Came over to a new country, and then within 2 months did her ACL in like the second game or something of the season. Missed the whole of the season. I think, as far as I'm aware, she was maybe struggling a bit with being far away from home in terms of that rehabilitation and stuff. So Everton agreed a loan to send her back to Seville to be with her family, I think, a bit more and get some minutes in her legs. Before, obviously, with, I think, Everton's forward line crisis, realising that they probably needed to recall her back at Christmas. Yeah. She's come in, she performed pretty well last week, I think, in that win against Aston Villa. Didn't catch the headlines, but she was pretty solid. And now to get her first goal for the club, she's got a lot of responsibility on her shoulders leading that line. So I think for that, it's a really nice story.
Lovely. Very nice.
Sorry, I prattled on a bit there.
It's all right. I think this is going to be a long episode anyway. Right, let's move on to the results in WSL 2. Sunderland against Sheffield United was postponed on Friday, which is very frustrating because it had gotten moved.
20 minutes before kick-off or something.
It had gotten moved venue, first of all, from the Stadium of Light, and then the bloody pitch got moved too. It was like waterlogged, and
Or was it 2 hours before kickoff?
It was a short time before Sheffield would have been there, that's for sure. Next up, Southampton 1, Newcastle 2, Portsmouth 1, Ipswich 2, Nottingham Forest 0, Charlton 2, Crystal Palace 2, Bristol City 1, and Durham 1, Birmingham 1. So it means that the table looks like this. Charlton, 34 points, still with a game in hand. Birmingham City, 29 points, also with a game in hand. Bristol City remain on 26, but Palace are up to 25. And Newcastle have leapfrogged. Southampton are on 25, with the Saints on 23. So still quite close for that playoff position. Portsmouth now replace Ipswich on the bottom of the table on goal difference. Both teams are on 10 points, but Portsmouth are on minus 22 goal difference, and Ipswich is so much better on minus 20. Ipswich also have a game in hand, so could move further ahead. So that's an interesting one to look at.
So that game in hand is Charlton. So a bit of a tricky one. I think Charlton this weekend was like, you guys can just battle it out. We're just going to do our thing. And everything went in their favour this weekend in terms of results. So they restored that advantage at the top of the table.
Okay, in our Any Other Business, we're going to quickly touch on some questions from you. We're going to try and be quick about them because we have gone on for a while. Geraniums and Guinea Pigs has asked on Instagram,
Great name.
Do you think Manchester United will be able to beat Chelsea in either of the cup games? Yes, I think.
I think they have the ability to. And we saw in the FA Cup 2 seasons ago
Yeah.
that in those one-off games, I think they can have an impact. They certainly have the players up front to be able to do that. They might not. I think sometimes they don't have enough cover in defence, but that's a question for a different day. But definitely, on any given day, they've got an opportunity.
They need to play a bit more pushing to win rather than not losing. I think they need to be a bit braver sometimes. But yeah, I mean, they absolutely have it in their locker, but equally Chelsea will want to be winning those cups after, the league has slipped so far out of their grasp. So be an interesting one to look at, but at least they'll have 2 goes. Hannah, which teams do you think will be most affected by the Asia Cup?
It's going to affect a lot of teams. I think Chelsea losing Ellie with Lucy Bronze not being fit is a blow. Especially, coming into that kind of Champions League side of the season. Arsenal losing a few.
Everton.
Steph Gatley for Arsenal will be a blow. Everton are...
Yeah.
I don't know what Everton are going to do because they've got, 3-4 Japanese players. Claire Wheeler as well will also probably go. So they're going to have to look into it.
Man City. The question is the most affected, so maybe Everton?
I think Everton, just because of the lack of depth as well. So yeah,
be an interesting one to keep an eye on. Always such an interesting time where, like, when it happens, you're like, this could completely change what happens in the league. Like, it could derail some people.
It's very frustrating how these, and like WAFCON is happening at the same time as well.
Oh God!
But like, there's not as many players leaving for that. But
it's interesting.
It's just frustrating how it gets plumped in the middle of.
I know it wasn't good that Ndozi got injured, but at least it gave them a chance to have another keeper in between the sticks and get some game time. But yeah, that'll be interesting to see at the same time. Anyway, Beth M. Card, can you please explain the relegation rules for this season? Getting nervous.
Absolutely. So WSL, if you finish 12th, you're not automatically relegated. You go into a playoff where you'll play the third finisher in third place team in WSL2 in a one-off playoff final. So whoever wins that will stay up. In WSL2, there's one going down this year. So it will be that battle for the bottom, and they automatically go down. There's no playoff or anything. That's them done. But normally it's 2, and that will restore from next season. But just while they're rebalancing, trying to get 14 teams into the top league, and then 12 into WSL2. So there's only one automatic relegation spot in the 2 leagues.
It is worth keeping an eye on because it's quite difficult to call because Bristol City, Crystal Palace and Newcastle are all fighting for that spot, and it could be any one of them. Okay, finally, Rona, thank you for the question. How are you enjoying the WSL not being a foregone conclusion? I slightly disagree. I do think Manchester City are like 90%, if not more, likely to lift the trophy. I think it's nice to have a new team winning it. I think it makes the Champions League battle as well is going to be really exciting this season. But, and I hope this doesn't happen, we've seen Manchester City slightly go off the rails a bit after Christmas and blow leads before. But I think the way they've been playing and with the new manager and the kind of cohesion and confidence. That is the cat. Can you hear that? How many nails has he got? Right, we're nearly done. We're going to carry on. We're going to plough through and pretend we can't hear it. I do think Manchester City are most likely, but I am enjoying the fact that we may very well see someone new lift it. So that is exciting.
You never know. If it gets a little bit tighter, it might get more exciting. But I think it's, I think City are pretty much in now. Yeah.
Okay, well that turned into a bit of a bumper episode. Hope you enjoyed it.
Sorry, I spoke for too long.
That's all right. I love hearing you talk. Do let us know what you thought about the games this week, whether you think the league is done and dusted, and do make sure you're subscribed and following us wherever you're listening or watching, because we've got plenty coming up this week, next week, and God knows how many other weeks after that. Otherwise, we will chat to you all next Monday for our next episode.